After my wife's funeral, my daughter-in-law said, "Dad, you will be more comfortable in a smaller place." I asked for 1 glass of water. By the time I finished it, I had already sent 3 messages she will never. I buried my wife of 41 years on a Thursday morning in October, and by that same evening I had already protected everything she left behind. The hardest part of the day was not the eulogy. It was not even the drive home. It was keeping my face perfectly neutral while someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment finally said the thing she had been rehearsing for months. Welcome back to True Revenge Stories. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You are going to love it here. My name is Reginald Ellsworth. I am 66 years old. I spent 34 years as a licensed land surveyor in Stratford, Ontario. Which means I have spent the better part of my professional life standing in fields in November reading instruments and arguing with municipal clerks about boundary lines. I am very good at reading land. As it turns out, I am also very good at reading people. I just prefer not to have to. Before I tell you what I did next, tell me where you are watching this from. I would love to know. My wife Eleanor and I bought our house on Hibernia Street in 1991. 3 bedrooms, a back garden she treated like a second career, a kitchen she repainted 4 times because apparently paint color is a living decision and not a permanent one. I never fully understood this, but I respected it because I respected her. 33 years in that house. Every wall has a story. Every squeaky floorboard has a name. Eleanor had been the kind of woman who brought homemade pie to the neighbors when they moved in and remembered their anniversaries better than they did. She was sharp and funny and completely uninterested in being impressive. She wore the same green cardigan for 11 years because it was comfortable and she did not care what that said about her. I adored her from the first conversation we ever had, and I never stopped. She passed in late September after an illness that gave us enough time to say everything we needed to say. We were grateful for that. The service was on October the 3rd. Our son Philip and his wife Tamsin drove in from Kitchener the night before. They stayed in the house. We ate leftover lasagna brought by our neighbor Dorothea, who I will be thanking properly for the rest of my natural life. The lasagna had spinach in it, which I normally object to on principle. That night I ate 2 helpings without complaint. Grief does unexpected things to a man's food politics. Tamsin had married Philip 8 years ago. She was organized and deliberate and the kind of person who asks to see a menu in advance. She was not unkind exactly, but she was always calculating. You could see it sometimes in the half-second pause before she smiled at something. Like she was checking whether the smile was worth the effort. Eleanor had noticed it years before I admitted it to myself. She had mentioned it once over breakfast in that careful way she had. She said, "That woman is always doing arithmetic." I told her she was being uncharitable. Eleanor said, "I know I am. That is not the same as being wrong." She was not wrong. In the weeks leading up to the funeral, Tamsin had asked twice about Eleanor's jewelry and once about the house in a way that was framed as concern but landed differently. She had mentioned a lovely retirement community in Waterloo as though she had just happened to come across it. She had sent me a link with no message attached. Just the link. I had looked at it once and then set my phone down and gone back to sitting with Eleanor. I noticed these things. I filed them quietly. I gave Tamsin every benefit of the doubt I could manufacture because she was Philip's wife, and Philip was my son, and my son was grieving, too, even if he showed it differently. On the day of the funeral, Tamsin was efficient and presentable. She handled the catering arrangements without being asked. She spoke appropriately to the people who came. She wore the right colors. She did everything correctly. And when we came home at 4:30 in the afternoon and I sat down on the living room sofa, still in my funeral clothes, still carrying 41 years of marriage and the weight of an October afternoon, she sat across from me, folded her hands, and said, "Been thinking and we really feel you would be more comfortable in a smaller place." I looked at her. I looked at Philip. Philip looked at the floor. And in that moment I understood everything. Not because of what she said, because of what his face did not do. He did not look surprised. He did not look uncomfortable in the way a person looks when something is being said too soon. He looked like a man waiting for a scene he had already rehearsed to finish so everyone could move on to the next one. This conversation had been planned. The timing had been chosen. They had waited until the day I was least likely to think clearly and most likely to simply nod. I am a land surveyor. I have spent 34 years measuring things with precision and patience. I know exactly where a line falls even when the ground beneath it shifts. And I knew in that moment precisely where this line was and precisely who had just crossed it. I said, "That sounds like something worth thinking about." And then I said, "I am sorry, could I trouble you for a glass of water?" Tamsin smiled and stood and went to the kitchen. Philip followed. They were in there perhaps 90 seconds discussing something quietly, and in those 90 seconds I sent 3 messages from my phone. The first went to Douglas Ferreira. Douglas has been my personal lawyer for 19 years. He is a compact, meticulous man who once spent 45 minutes explaining a single clause in a contract to me with the enthusiasm of someone describing their favorite film. I sent him 4 sentences. I told him I needed an immediate hold placed on any estate or property-related transactions. I told him I needed all documents locked under his review before anything moved. I told him the timing of events was not accidental. He responded in under 2 minutes with 2 words, "Already on it." If you have made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you genuinely. The second message went to my financial advisor Patricia Oze, who has the particular gift of being calm in a way that makes everyone around her calm, too. I told her to move all accounts to restricted access and to flag any incoming requests related to the estate until she heard from me directly. Patricia sent back a voice note. I will listen to it later. I suspect it was 3 sentences and 2 of them were reassuring. The third message went to my independent accountant Bernard, who I have worked with since 1998 and who once caught an error in a municipal tax filing that saved me a significant amount of money and never once mentioned it again as a favor owed. I told Bernard to flag everything and touch nothing until Douglas called him. He replied with 1 word, "Done." By the time Tamsin came back with the water, every financial and legal door in that house had been quietly closed. She set the glass down in front of me with a kind expression. I thanked her. I drank it slowly. I said I was very tired and needed to rest. They said, of course, and went to their room, and I sat alone in my living room on Hibernia Street with Eleanor's green cardigan folded on the arm of her chair, and I thought, all right. All right, then. I called my best friend Morton Bales the following morning. Morton and I have been friends since 1987 when we were both junior surveyors on the same municipal project in Perth County, and he told a joke so inappropriate at an 8 a.m. site meeting that I nearly choked on my coffee. We have been inseparable ever since. He answered on the second ring. I said, Morton, I need to tell you something. He said, I figured. I said, they brought it up the same day at the house while I was still wearing the suit. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Reg, I want you to know I am not surprised and I am also furious, and both of those things can be true at once. I said, that is very helpful, Morton. He said, I know. Do you have Douglas involved? I said, yes. He said, good. Then he said, Reg, she wore the right dress to the funeral and came home with a real estate plan. That tells you everything you need to know about the distance between performance and feeling. I said, I know. He said, are you all right? I said, I am. I will be. He said, come for dinner Sunday. Margaret is making that chicken thing you like. I said, I will be there. He said, bring nothing. I said, I will bring wine. He said, bring nothing. I brought wine. Douglas and Patricia and Bernard worked with quiet efficiency over the following 2 weeks. Philip had apparently made inquiries at a real estate office in Kitchener regarding the house on Hibernia Street. He had not yet taken any formal action, but the inquiry was documented. Douglas sent a formal letter on my behalf making clear that all estate matters were under active legal management, and that any external inquiries or actions relating to the property would be treated accordingly. The letter was polite. It was also, Douglas told me with his particular form of dry satisfaction, extremely precise. Philip called 3 days after the letter arrived. He said, "Dad, I did not mean for it to come across that way." I said, "I know." I also said that I had every confidence we would find a way forward that honored his mother's memory and our family's integrity. There was a long pause. Then he said, "Yes. I think we will." Tamsin has not raised the subject again. She may not raise it again for some time. Douglas tells me the estate is clean and protected and that no one is walking through any door that has not been opened by me first. I found this to be the most comfortable sentence anyone had said to me in weeks. Morton came by on a Wednesday with a casserole Margaret had made and a bottle of something I did not recognize from a vineyard I had never heard of. He said it was very good. It was adequate. I will not be telling Margaret that. We sat in the living room. Eleanor's chair was still there. It will stay there as long as I want it to stay there. Morton did not comment on it the way some people might. He just sat across from it like it was perfectly natural because it was. He said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I am okay. The house is quiet, but it is my quiet." He nodded. He said, "She would have sent those messages herself." I thought about that. I said, "She would have sent them faster." He laughed. A real one. It moved through the room and sat there for a moment. Then he said, "The wine is growing on you, I can tell." I said it absolutely is not. He said you have refilled your glass twice. I looked down. He was right. I made a mental note to say nothing further on the subject of the wine.